Well, good morning everybody. Now, where do I begin? Where do I begin?
The Galtees are Ireland's highest inland mountains, and the summit of the range is covered by a few metres depth of blanket peat, which has formed across the summit since the Ice Age. This peat has been cut over and eroded in places, and displays high peat hags in some localities, particularly on the southern shoulder of Galtee Moor.
Well, good morning everybody. And it is a truly beautiful morning, but I must inform you, and I'm sure you already know, that we've broken records for sub-zero temperatures last night. As I start my climb here on higher peaks, it's -4. It was -6 when I got out of the four-poster this morning at home, but it's recovered a little bit. But it's -4, and the peaks ahead of me are covered in a dusting of snow. So, this is what you call being a committed walker when you get out in temperatures like this. But many of you do it, so I can't claim solitary credit. But it's a gorgeous morning here. Stunning. Clear blue skies, jets leaving slipstreams across the sky, and nobody around. Now, on this walk, from within a few moments of leaving your vehicle at the car park, you're heading straight into a horrendously rough, boulder-strewn path, which is climbing all the time. By the time you level off after 20 minutes, the old bones in the body has gotten rid of the cobwebs. Now, because this mountain range has thousands and thousands of sheep, huge flocks of sheep, anybody intending to come up here, and there are many walkers, use these hills for recreational purposes. And for those, especially those that accompany themselves with their dogs, please be aware that it's a necessity to have your dog on a lead. The sign on the gate says it all. Dogs not on the lead will be shot. I'm almost certain that's not an idle threat. So be considerate and be aware. Now it's quite early in the morning. The sun is up, but we had a horrendous night of freezing fog. And in quite a lot of places throughout the Emerald Isle, there's been snow. We've had 2 weeks of pretty cold temperatures now, but they have been ideal for walking.
The Devonian sandstones and conglomerates, which make up the Galtees, are also well displayed at outcrop localities. It is known that the sandstone bedrock at the top of Galtee Moor, as well as much of it across the highest Galtee Ridge, poked through the glacier ice during the last Ice Age as a nunatak. A number of deep corries occur across the top of the ridge, comprising deep, wide hollows, which are sometimes over 1 kilometre wide.
Onward and upwards, literally, Anyway, I gave myself a chance this morning. I awaited in the lower slopes near the car park for the fog to dissipate. It was quite dense, but once the sun came over the horizon from the east, it gradually but certainly disappeared. So I took on the trek. So I'm a bit later than I would be, but because of the fog I missed the sunrise, which would have been spectacular on the landscape this morning because it's so cold.
Access to the mountains is restricted to hill walkers and climbers, as there is no road access. Some signboard explaining the glacial history and importance of the mountains would prove worthwhile. The Galtee Mountains have been shaped and moulded during the Ice Age by glacier ice abrading the mountain tops and flanks. The mountains therefore comprise ice-scoured bedrock, which itself is Devonian Old Red Sandstone.
Oh, it's magnificent here today, and I don't want to boast again. Oh my God, I don't wish to boast again. But every walk all last year and so far this year, I've been blessed with beautiful weather. Sunshine, this morning, it's a tropical -4 degrees.
The main habitat types found on the Galtees include dry heath, alpine heath and grassland, with some localised areas of blanket bog on the upper slopes.
Do you remember last year, folks, on one of my long walks, I said that if reincarnation is something that actually exists, and I'm lucky, or perhaps unlucky, to be reincarnated. However, I'm chosen to come back as. I don't want to come back as a sheep. No way. Can you imagine the conditions that these poor creatures struggled and suffered in and under last night here on these exposed high altitude slopes of the Galtees? So that's my reasoning for wishing not to come back on my reincarnation as a sheep.
Some communities of rare Arctic alpine plants are supported on these mountains, with species such as the small white orchid, green spleenwort, mountain sorrel, and alpine sawwort being recorded. Sheep are reared on the uplands and lowlands of the range.
When you partake in activities like this, in extreme cold weather like this, in haunting, rugged and beautiful landscapes like this, I stop every so often and I contemplate how lucky I am. Perhaps I should even pinch myself. This is something that keeps me going. The isolation and the peace and the quiet here, totally void of people at this hour of the day and in weather conditions like this, is just magical.
Along the outline ridge of the Galtee Mountains lies Owers Mountain. Part of this mountain has been protected as a special area of conservation due to the presence of species-rich Nardos grassland habitat. One of the habitats listed on Annex 1 of the EU Habitats Directive.
Now, I read the inscription on this memorial stone for you last year in the middle of the most gorgeous summer's day. So if I can now again decipher it, it says, in memory of airmen Timmy Byrne, Tom Gannon and Dick O'Reilly, founder members of Abbey Shrewl Aero Club, County Longford, who lost their lives on these mountains on the 20th of September 1976. So this was one sad episode on the Galtee Mountains. So I continue on my way and I depart the memorial plaque where those 3 airmen died. It's quite exposed, lonely and desolate at this particular site. But I'm back into the sun now, and the rays have picked me up and hopefully energize me for the next assault on what's right before me. So I've leveled out here, but as I just trod forward, the climb begins once again.
2 major periods of glaciation affected the area. The rounded summits of the Galtees were formed due to the higher parts of the Galtees being above the ice. The constant free thaws action on the higher rocks gradually wore these down to form the stony, scree-covered summits we see today.
I've come to Galtee Moor on a few occasions over the years, and I've come up here at about just before COVID on a Saturday morning, and when I left the car park I walked for about an hour or a bit more probably, and the weather closed in on me and I got a bit further where I am right now geographically, but I was forced to take shelter on what little shelter was there, but it actually deteriorated to the point resulting in forcing me off the hills. But the pathway that I'm actually walking on right now runs deep with water when the weather is bad. So before this long, dry, cold spell extricates itself from the Irish landscape, I'm availing of firm ground on the foot, sunshine every day, all day, bitterly cold, but I'm dry, I'm warm within, and I can progress onto the hills. Isn't that the purpose of the exercise? Taking a breather every 10 or 15 minutes or so gives you a chance to turn yourself around on an axis and admire the view stretching back into neighbouring counties here in Southern Ireland, in Munster. I'm at a place called Galtee, but I'm crossing over the boundary between County Limerick and County Tipperary. It's pretty rough on the foot now, but at least all the boulders are frozen onto the surface, so they're not rolling or rocking around. That sounds like a song, doesn't it? Rolling and rocking around. Now, where else would I prefer to be this morning? Cold, invigorating, sunny, clear blue skies, good and firm underfoot, with majestic scenery to die for. It is absolutely bloody stunning, and excuse my French. I'm just crossing a stream here now that's frozen over. Wouldn't it be terrible to take a fall here? I don't want to keep harking on about the benefits of walking. I would never expect or encourage anybody to do the distances that I tackle. And perhaps if I were a newcomer to this activity, I'd be reluctant to embrace the distances and the extreme terrain. But I'm gone well beyond that now, after many years. Walking now is, for me, like breathing in the oxygen that sustains my life. Nature I adore, but above all, the peace and the quiet. Oh man, the peace and the quiet I just love. I've checked the temperature, and the temperature of the hillside where I am right now is -5. Minus Cuig. Cuig being 5 in the Irish language. That's what you gotta watch out for. That's what you gotta watch out for. And I have a spectator here on the hill to my left. There is one distinct advantage of having really cold, hard frost weather. It firms up the surface on the foot, and one can really keep up a walking momentum, even uphill. But you still have to be careful. And this is not a marathon. And I'm not in a race, and I want to walk up, enjoy my trip up, enjoy the summit, and enjoy my trip back down safely. I have reached the turn off, as I call it. There is a name on this junction here with this cairn of stones, and I'll try and find it when I'm doing the video, but I just gone out of my head. I've been looking, watching, admiring, and sitting down and videoing and talking to myself and talking to you. But now I go this way and up there. Hopefully it'll be okay to get up the last 100 meters or so.
When you reach the stone cairn on your left hand side, where the trail splits in two, take a left turn here and follow this stony path.
A bit later and a bit further up, there is no way that the shell is coming off, because it's still -5 and I've taken off the gloves, which now I think will have to be put back on. But there's a wind chill factor now which is making it feel pretty icy.
Once you reach the low point between the two peaks of Galtee Moor and Galtee Beag, you can take a right to go up to the top of Galtee Beag, or take a left to the summit of Galtee Moor, Ireland's 14th highest mountain. It's a steep ascent to the top.
Now it's difficult going here on the peatland. The sun has melted the surface frost and there's a bit of puddling and pooling of water happening. But I'm not alone anymore. I've met 4. I've met two climbers together, and I've met 2 separate other guys. So there's 5 of us up here. Now, this morning, folks, the final assault on Galtee Moor might be a little bit on the suspect side, because the slope that I'm climbing up is covered in snow, and we've had nearly 2 weeks of constant overnight freezing. What a place. Well, I've just met a couple of more hikers, and they failed to get to the summit this morning of Galtee Moor. Apparently the covering of snow that's on the western ridge over my left finger there is quite compacted and rather dangerous. In fact, they said it would be lethal. So I'm going over myself to have a look, and I'll take advice then, and perhaps heed the advice that I got from those who are better in the know on the slopes of high mountains than I am. But we'll go over there and we'll have a look.
The Galtee Mountains are spread across the borders of 3 counties in Munster: Limerick, Tipperary and Cork. The name of this range of mountains was derived from the Irish Sliabhta na Cuillte, or mountains of the forests. Galtee Moor is the highest peak in the range, reaching 3,009 feet, and is situated on the border between Limerick and Tipperary. Glacial action during the last ice age helped to form various features of the Galtees. The summits of the Galtees are characterized by scree, a result of constant freeze-thaw action during this period. Cirque were formed on the upper slopes that are today the underlying support for Curry Lakes, including Lough Curragh, Lough Boreen and Lough Muscry. The Galtees are Ireland's highest inland mountain range and encourage a number of enthusiastic hikers to climb to the summit of Galtee Moor at 919 metres each year. There are countless trails throughout the range. Late August last year, 2023, I did successfully come up and climb to the summit of Galtee Moor. The weather was gorgeous, the days were long, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. An update on the situation out here. I made my way to the lower slopes and the approaches to Galtee Moor. But as you can see probably over my shoulders there is a heavy indulgence of snow, but it's become compacted over 12 or 13 nights of hard frost. So it's not advisable, because slipping there is not a good idea with a backpack and a lot of gear. There is nothing to grab onto once you do take a slip, and I don't want to fall a kilometre into a valley, so I'm going to take on a more civilized slope. So here I am, climbing on the approaches to Galtee Beag. But don't be fooled by the name Galtee Beag, because it is still a sizable mountain. The sun continues to beat down on me. We're a consistent -5 with a really nasty wind chill factor here. Now I'm high on the slopes of the Galtees. I'm 2/3 up Galtee Beag, but Galtee Moor over my left shoulder. Too dangerous to take on the final 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes this morning. I'm not going to risk it. We're here to enjoy ourselves, not to bring grief on myself and my family. So I'm going to continue to climb up in here to Galtee Beag.
I didn't scale Galtee Moor today because even up here in Galtee Beag, it's pretty lethal. I mean, you don't have the fall away into the valley, but you still have a nasty fall and maybe a lot of rolling before you come to a stop, with a lot of jagged rocks and things here. But it's -6 degrees here, -6 degrees. But I'm going to take a bit of shelter here from one of these large boulders, and I'm going to have my sustenance with a view towards Cork, Limerick, Waterford and Tipperary, and probably further afield. Even on some of the peaks of the Knockmill Downs, there is a sprinkling of snow. The view here is just incredible. Here on the slopes of the Galtee Mountains, on the summit of Galtee Beag, partaking in lunch with scenery for hundreds of kilometers, circumnavigating my perch here. It is just magnificent. It's bitterly cold, so I'm going to have some warm sustenance. So again, I'll dine alone. Now, we've had a lunch, took some shelter behind two big boulders there to my right. Bitterly cold now. It's really and truly cold. The sun is belting down, but it's a winter sun, so the shower is staying on. So I'm not the only one on the hills today. We just saw there a few moments ago 3 more hikers. So it is a day for high altitude walking. Now, I must add this, that all this hill walking is not just a walk in the park. This is quite hard slog. Now, I am not into mountain trekking, as you know, as I keep telling you, but there have been occasions like last week and today that I have ventured onto the high slopes. Today now has been a harsh one, but it's gotten bitterly cold, but you have to be very careful. I find that coming down off the slopes of mountains can be just as dangerous as going up. Now I'm taking a detour here, and I'm going to go across some really rough ground with Galtee Moor to my right. Now those 3 hikers that I met up on the summit of Galtee tell me they're going to attempt to get onto Galtee Moor. Now, that's all fine. This old boy here wouldn't have any hesitation in going up Galtee Moor, but I don't believe that with today's conditions underfoot that I want to risk getting myself in trouble. And that's what it's all about. I have just more than myself to think about. It's quite steep, quite boggy. It's thawed out in the last few hours. But I have good tires under me. It truly is cold. In fact, it's quite cold now. But what a day for walking. I've been up here in quite different conditions over the years. Last week there was a young lad, 32 years old. Bloody hell. 32 years old, got himself lost in these parts, and I think he was missing for quite a number of days, resulting in many people coming out to search for him. But he was eventually located. But at this time of the year, on these high slopes, you just need to be aware of conditions. You need to be aware of where you're going. This can be a majestic place to come out and get walking for a few hours. Fresh air, wilderness, ruggedness, beautiful. But this can be an unforgiving place and can whip your ass very, very easily. I'm back on a rocky road. Not the rocky road to Dublin, the rocky road to the car park. When and if you come up to the Galtees for the first time, for goodness sake, pay heed to where you're walking. You can look up there, it looks quite close. It's not. It's a fair hike from here to the summit of Galtee Moor and Galtee Beag, but you need to pay heed to the tracks that you apply yourself to when you come onto the hills. You can't really go wrong for the first hour or thereabouts. But once you come here to the junction of the cairn of stones, there are paths running in all directions here, going into valleys and gullies and ravines and to the different mountain summits. So you come back down off the hills, you need to have some idea to where you're supposed to be heading if you have a car parked in a specific location, which we all do. Disorientation is a fact of life when you walk the hills that you haven't been on before. And this place is a choice example of myriad of paths going all over the mountain slopes. And you don't want to come down a pathway and find yourself 6 miles from your car. And you think that's funny? That's happened. I've been walking just over 4.5 hours. Yep, I kid you not. Done a lot of meandering around the slopes. I hadn't come out this morning, or hadn't decided yesterday rather, that I was without fail going to get to the summit of Galtee Moor. I've been there a few months ago, but if it were possible this morning, without a risk, I would have by all means got my bottom onto the top of Galtee Moor. But I got onto the summit of Galtee Beag and I trekked around the slopes of the Galtees. So to me, that's an achievement for today. Today was probably is still the coldest day so far this year. But the year is only 16 days old. But it's still, by goodness, it's pretty cold. In the past 20 minutes or so, or since I've spoken to you last, there is an approaching cloud bank which is beginning to obscure the golden orb that's in front of me. I've clambered around these mountains pretty significantly over many years. Certainly since I've come back from down under some years back. I've been into some of those ravines you see down there, and over here at the other side of Glengara last week. And in the summer I went to Galtee Moor, and then I did come at Galtee Moor from the Gal Valley side. So I think I have served a good apprenticeship on the Galtee Mountains, Ireland's highest inland peaks. I would recommend to all and sundry to give a walk on the Galtees a go. Stay on this main trackway from the Black Road car park. Walk yourself up to the cairn of stones. When you walk through farming land or common landscape like this, there's always livestock grazing at some point. You may not see them. Put your dog on a leash, but for goodness sake, if you open a gate to get onto the property, close it behind you. You don't want livestock wandering onto neighbours' farming land or property and disputes happening as a result. Be grateful for having the privilege, or being given the privilege rather, to walk on property. Well, folks, here I am on the lower slopes of the Galtees, surrounded by sheep and more sheep. I've just checked and I'm about 15 minutes to the car, but I have 13.16 kilometers walked, crisscrossing the slopes of the Galtees. So that's a sizable trek this morning in sub-zero temperatures. Mountain trekking can be hard slog, but I'm invigorated, refreshed, at peace with the world. Now, hot shower, cup of coffee, feet up when I get back home, and I have fulfilled my ambition today. Of course, I'll be walking again in the morning in my usual hop, so hopefully there'll be a good lot of walking done this year. So once again, folks, thank you for keeping company with me. I do all the walking. Unfortunately, I have to do all the talking. God help me. Folks, have a good day. Now remember, keep a look out there for elderly people, because this weather is quite savage on most people, but unfortunately the elderly. They don't complain, but they may be at home on their own without anybody keeping a check. So please, if you know anybody that might need a bit of a dig out, just knock on the door, say hello. Please do so. Look after yourselves on the roads. Black ice awaits those unwary drivers. And have a good day. And take care. Take care of each other. God bless you all. Bye-bye. From the slopes of the Galtees. Bye-bye.